around Gaddafi would go. And a little bit earlier, Libya's deputy ambassador to the UN, Ibrahim Debashi, told us that defections could have a very serious effect on the Gaddafi regime.
Well, the defection of Mr. Musa Kosa is very important because he is one of the closest collaborators of Colonel Gaddafi. So it is a very significant to other people also, because once they see the defection of Mr. Musa Kosa, they understand that things are not going as they think.
Let's look at the latest situation in Libya with two guests. Lord Gilbert, who was a former defence minister at the time of the Kosovo crisis 12 years ago. He's in our Westminster studio. Nabila Ramdani is a journalist and Middle East analyst, and she joins us too. Very good evening to you both. Nabila Ramdani, this whole question of defections, will it be buoying up the spirits, do you think, of the rebels? They probably need a lift at the moment. They're starting to talk about ceasefires.
Well, I think Musa Kosa's defection can be interpreted as a direct consequence of Prime Minister David Cameron's call during the NATO summit, which was held last Tuesday, a call to ask the Gaddafi loyalists to indeed defect or face trial for war crimes. So it seems to be a direct consequence of the address made by David Cameron. Having said that, the very fact that the rebels are now calling for a ceasefire is, in my opinion, a sign of weakness. They are very tired. They are clearly outnumbered. They have they had major reverses over the past 48 hours. They indeed lost control over the two crucial cities where all the oil reserves are, namely Brega and Ras Lanouf. And of course, these also are, not only oil terminals, but they're also the supply lines towards the east, which is crucial because it means that the Gaddafi forces are in the position to cut the supply lines and not only oil, the supplies for oil, but also for water and electricity. And these are, of course, crucial.
Lord Gilbert, Nabila puts it quite well there. There's a real counterbalance, isn't there? On the one side, the rebels have had some setbacks in recent days. They've been driven back. They're now talking about a ceasefire. On the other hand, we've seen defections from the Gaddafi regime and talks in London on the other hand. Do you see, through all this, do you see that we're any nearer to an end game?
Well, first thing is it's very difficult to distinguish between rumour and fact at the moment. I have been told that for several days now there's been a great increase in telephone traffic between Tripoli and London, and no doubt between other capital cities in Europe. And nearly all of it has been, how do I take care of me? How do I get out of this? Whether that's going to produce any defections, I don't know, but Gaddafi must know that Musa Kosa's is going to raise questions in the minds of a lot of other people in his most intimate collection of people around him. So I think he'd be very worried. I think, personally, we might see an end game. I don't know how it's going to come, but much earlier than people have been expecting up till now. I could look for quite foolish, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at an end game within the month of April.
You see a real danger, though, of a stalemate, with just neither one side or the other being able to get the upper hand, no serious tipping point, and the chances of the rebels really being able to talk to the Gaddafi government seem quite remote at the moment.
Well, we have seen over the past few days that when a city is conquered or by the rebels, it's immediately taken over or regained by the Gaddafi forces and vice versa. It seems to be an endless game and quite a sinister one, I have to say. Because let's not forget the human tragedy at the center of it all. There are people dying day in, day out. On both sides, I have to say. I have seen very graphic pictures, for example, in the French press of Gaddafi soldiers and airmen being decapitated and whose bodies have been mutilated. So this is the kind of savagery that can only take place in the context of a civil war. And I think we clearly need to sit down now and talk about, how to get out of this and certainly considerations about further heavy military action is not the answer, in my opinion.
Well, may I say that whether or not...
I was going to say, Lord Gilbert,
Yes.
sorry, Lord Gilbert, can I just ask you this? I mean, looking at it, a month and a half into the uprising, 2 weeks after the US resolution was passed, the no-fly zone was put in place, and coalition airstrikes and so on. I mean, looking at it now, how wise was this intervention for Britain and the rest of the coalition?
Well, it was mainly an American and British intervention, actually, if the truth be known. Some of those brilliant strikes from cruise missiles, Tomahawks, came only from American and British planes, and or something of the order of 200, just over, and only 3 of them, not from planes, from surface ships or submarines, and only 3 of them came from a British submarine. All the rest came from the Americans. Of course, the French contribution right at the beginning from their aircraft taking out Gaddafi's tanks somewhere on the coastal road between Tripoli and Benghazi was brilliant, very, very effective. But we have done huge damage, we've been told, to his air defense system. We've knocked out any number of his ammunition dumps. He had enormous...
And the rebels are still on the back foot. The rebels are still on the back foot. I'm asking you, was the intervention a good idea?
Absolutely. Well, things would have been much worse if we hadn't done it. I'm quite clear about that. And he had an enormous armed camp there, and we've taken out a great chunk of it. And his air force, for all practical purposes, doesn't exist. I have a story, I don't know if it's accurate or not, you people may be able to confirm it, that 3 ships of his were sunk the other day when he was trying to blockade one of his own harbors to stop humanitarian aid coming in. It's very difficult to get at all the facts. But obviously, on the ground, the freedom fighters are unsophisticated, untrained, very, very brave young men, driving very lightly skinned vehicles. They're no match for a main battle tank. And without the help that they've had from us, they'd have been wiped out, and Benghazi would have been in Gaddafi's control long ago.
Lord Gilbert and Nabila Ramdani, thank you both very much for your views on it tonight.